the match between Antic and Craze, and I have lots to say about this match because I think it was a very interesting match. Antic is a very experienced Crazy House player. Grandmaster Craze from Australia is probably like a potential top 10 player, like to be rivaling people like Jan Lee and Opawesen in future. But he has only been playing the game for less than 6 months. So although he was 2600 rating, like that's a huge disparity. Antic down in the 2200s. But Antic's a very experienced player. He's been in 2500 plus in the past. 2600 though, so no one gave Antic a chance in this match. He's been rusty. Craze has been playing a lot the last few months. But this is what happened. Okay, so it's quite a surprising match, as we'll see, because opening theory didn't mean much. You expect top level games. Opening theory means everything, but it's the play that matters much more than the opening theory. So e4, and Craze went knight f6, and then switched into e5. So it's e4, e5. And it's the bishop c4 line, and Craze goes bishop e7. And d3, castles, castles, d6. So fairly symmetric position, except black is reinforcing this pin. Now, if black puts the bishop on c5 in these positions, it's quite usual for white to take advantage by putting his bishop, pinning this knight to the queen. And there's even a main line that goes, you put your bishop on c5, you wait for your opponent to put the bishop on g5, and then you back your bishop back to e7 to guard against this pin. So that's even a main line in one of the variations. But sometimes you're forced to play d6 because you need to continue your development, so your bishop gets stuck out here, this bishop comes in, and this knight comes in, and the main line then is you actually should just give up the queen. Maybe sometimes you bring your knight in here and so on. You give up your queen for a piece, and white does have an edge. He has a queen for a piece after all, but black does have some counterplay. So that would be the main line after bishop c5, which is what people used to play a couple of years ago. If you go back to the 2017 Crazy House World Championship, or even 2018. But nowadays, the strongest players favour bishop e7 because they consider bishop c5 to be refuted. d6. Now the opening main line against, instead of bishop g5, of the bishop's back here defending this pin, is actually usually to put your knight on g5 instead. And so again, for people who are new to Crazy House, this is just to show you what the mainline theory doesn't count for anything. This is just purely out of interest, and to show you some of the ideas of the game. And for those experienced players, you'll have seen all of this already. Even if you don't play e4, e5, you'll have seen so many people play this that if I just open up the Opening Explorer, you've got hundreds of games in this line. So the idea is to put pressure on f7, and just to show you how the main line goes. The knight might come in to d4, bishop e3, queen e8. Okay, that wasn't the main line I was thinking about. But okay, that's one main line. There are other main lines where you literally just go and you sack your knight on the light squares. I can't remember which one exactly, and you take advantage of this light square attack. But okay, this is takes knight here. Okay, this is not a line I've seen before, but this has been played a lot. I mean, just to show you, queen takes b5 has been played 64 times. So it is the main line apparently. And so the point is you give up the queen, but you distract the bishop from this very dangerous diagonal. Then there's this crazy move, knight at g6. You're threatening queen at h8, checkmate. But you don't want to take the knight with the f takes g6, I think, because then the bishop comes back and harasses your king. But if you take with h takes g6, then you can take this bishop and the knight can't take back because otherwise queen here would be checkmate. So you have to defend like this, and again you're going for, what are you going for here? So if black does nothing, the threat is is simply there's no obvious immediate threat. I'm trying to see what is the obvious immediate. I guess I'm not sure what the threat is here. I guess knight takes knight, knight takes knight, queen takes bishop would be the threat. But okay, so knight here, you sack your white, then sacks his queen for a knight, takes here, brings the bishop back with the check, takes, and okay, bishop here, and you don't even grab the rook, because if you grab the rook, you'll get mated. With the classic two knights mate, knight h3 would give you a smothered mate, so you have to take that knight, but then once you've taken the knight, the second knight comes into f3, and this is a standard mating pattern. Knight comes back. If the king goes back, it's queen g2 mate. If the king goes up, queen g2 is still mate. So, okay. I don't know this line at all. I'm just showing you some of the crazy things. So after this, you have to get your king out of the way. Notice bishop here is not just pinning the rook, it's also defending h3. And that's why taking the rook would be a mistake. So king h1 is a very prophylaxis to avoid all these mating ideas involving knight h3 check. Anyway, and apparently this is equal. This sort of position is kind of equal. Apparently black might be doing okay. So this is to show you, knight g5 is the main line. Knight g5 is not what Antic played. Instead he plays h3. You have to always watch out when you play moves like h3, because you provide, although you stop black from dropping on h3, you give black a target. This is exactly what black is doing. He does knight a5, he's simply hunting for a bishop, and he's going to try and use that bishop to double up. So he takes the bishop and simply doubles up on h3, and it's kind of hard to defend. But you can defend. You can go knight g5. That's a reasonable defense. Having said that, this could be chased away, but then the idea is you take here, rook takes, and you get in on these light squares. So white does get some counterplay. The other way of defending obviously would be king h2, use your king as a defender. What happened in the game one is he didn't defend at all, he just ignored it, and Craze capitalizes. So this is already just a simple win for... Okay, let's have a quick poll. Do you want the engine on or not? I'm going to have how do I do this poll? Poll, engine on or off? And we're going to give you 1 minute. Do you prefer to see the engine on when we're commentating or off? I'll start the poll. And yeah, so just if you could answer the poll, and we'll do whatever you ask. Okay, so bishop takes h3. Okay, so he's crashing into the position. He could pick up a rook, or he could later put a pawn on g2 or pawn at g5, a g4, and try and hunt for a rook for h1 mate. Okay, so this is looking, the king is very exposed. What does white do? White just completely ignores him. Black, very chill, just puts his king on h8. Queen d2. So white is trying to create some ideas of his own. So I guess he was afraid of at h6, knight at h6, these sorts of ideas. So queen d2, these are all reasonable looking moves. Rook g8, so Craze, his king is super safe. Oh, 4 people and you all want it on. Okay, so we'll go on from the beginning. I'll just play the game so far. So you can see here, this is h3 is not good, and especially once this move here is a bit of a mistake. So black has got a comfortable edge. None of these moves are bad from either player. Knight g4 check is nice. Why didn't he step back to g1? I guess he was afraid, or h1. So he's afraid of, what's he afraid of here? A rook at h3 check. If you go here, you're afraid of bishop takes bishop. No. So pawn h2. Why can't he just take with the knight, for example? Knight. Oh, okay. I see what. Okay, this is I'd completely forgotten this. So at h2, you have to remember this h2 square is not defended by the king, because there will be a fork with the queen at the end of the line. So So he just does king here, and actually the same trick works. Rook at h2. Imagine trade, trade, trade. There's a knight at f3 at the end of the line. So this is something missed. Black missed this idea. Rook at h2 is very strong here. Because if you just take rook at h2 takes, takes, and you don't take back, then this knight is... suppose you say grab a bishop or something. There's stuff like knight takes rook, you're hitting the queen, you're threatening rook h1, pushing the king even further out. So yeah, knight on h2 is actually quite strong here. So this move was missed in the game. Also, just to say, if you try and grab this, I mean the king is very exposed and is going to get mated soon. It's not a forced mate apparently just yet, but it's not good. So bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5. Is there a forced mate here? Apparently not quite. Bishop at h3, king g3, queen takes g5, knight takes g5, bishop at f4 check. These sorts of ideas. Okay, and you're picking up a queen with check then. Okay, so that was a strong idea, but instead, yeah, and basically trading pieces was good, but instead black defended. Okay, so black's completely winning. White is just trying to take everything and then run back to safety. Bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5. Okay, yeah, so Craze, as black here, actually finds the forced mate. It's a forced mate in 7. h5. The point is that if you... This is quite pretty. If you take this, you just get boxed in. If you take this pawn on h5, you get blocked in by a bishop. If you start trying to run back, then rook at h5, king g3, queen takes g5. It's all over. But if you try and defend like this, you just get boxed in by a rook as well, and so you have to defend. And then simply at g3 is checkmate. So really, example, just blocking the king off. But if you run back, as what happened in the game, you just keep on chasing the king down, and rook here is checkmate. So. So Craze wins the first game as black. And if you look at the next game, you can see ahead, like all of these black wins. The first 6 games all go to black. It's a bit of a spoiler. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so game 2, Antic is black. He's just lost as white. Can he come back as black? And what does he play? He plays this passive nonsense, basically. Just e6, sort of perk defense kind of stuff. Now knight e5, yeah, this is a very subtle positional mistake. The reason it's a subtle positional mistake is it's inviting a battle along this long diagonal, which is the one weakness in white's position, and one kind of entry point. Like, white is completely dominating here and doesn't need a battle. He just needs to grab space and completely win. By doing this, he's inviting what Antic played, excellent move, bishop b7. And then this is another mistake again. He's inviting this confrontation along the long diagonal, but he doesn't want a confrontation along the long diagonal, because that will only benefit black. And also by trading, you don't really want to trade when you have a huge space advantage. You want to keep on developing and press on your opponent. And Blunderman says the entry point is the C diagonal. Takes. Yeah, so he realizes he doesn't want a confrontation along that diagonal, so he tries to block it. Takes, and Antic's very sensible in a way, sacks a piece to try and make sure there's a confrontation along that diagonal. He just makes a very subtle error. In this particular position, by playing this move f5, he's wasted his one pawn in hand. Oh, Blunderman, I see what you're saying. This diagonal, yes. No, absolutely. But there is nothing here because this is all blocked off. But absolutely, usually that's the main diagonal. But this is such a bad opening for black that white's only hope was to have some play along this diagonal, and somehow he's got it. Like, that is the only good thing about black's position. But then he makes a very subtle positional error. It turns out in this position, f5 is strong, because f5 really weakens e6, but e6 doesn't need defending. It's well supported. And this is a really strong move, because what does white do? If he were to do something terrible like this, you'd go takes, takes, and pawn at g4, threatening bishop at f3, winning the queen. And this is already this is like already a nightmare along on white's light squares. So obviously there's no chance in hell that white would go down this line, but f5 is actually really strong. f7 is not a weakness, e6 is not a weakness. At f5 is the right idea, but we just waste a pawn. So it's slightly wasteful. f3, yeah, white was rightly worried about this diagonal opening up, so gives up a piece. Gives back the piece, I should say. So he was eyeing this square as well as this square, so this is a quite nice defense. Defending both. And he does play f5 after all, so he should have played it first time. Knight at e5, and bishop takes e4. So bishop takes e4 turns out to be, well, they say it's a mistake, but it seems like a very subtle mistake. What else could he have done here? I don't understand the engine move, knight at f7. Because if you go knight at f7, can't you just take this bishop? But then I guess you have a knight in hand. So I guess it's you give up on the diagonal and you go for the knights. But okay. So this is a kind of very subtle mistake, only because there are worries along this when this file opens up, and they're sort of we'll see. They're ideas of knight at g6, for example, at some point. Okay, knight at h3, and here white blundered. So white, who's Craze in this position, was doing very nicely. He should have apparently taken king g2, and notice in this position you can't capture this knight because otherwise you get mated. And the reason you get mated is takes, takes, put a bishop here. If you dare take this bishop, there's this classic trick: magnet into the corner, capture the queen with check, queen here, bring the other queen in, and you're mating. And if you don't capture the bishop, if you just go and slide into the corner, well then you're losing your queen with check, and so that's game over as well. So that went by a bit quickly, so maybe I'll just quickly show the bishop takes line again. If you take here, you want to capture the queen with check, so you dump a rook here with check. And now, what to do? This is also tempting, knight at h6. In fact, knight at h6 is even stronger. I just wanted to show queen at h8 here. Knight here is also tempting. Knight at e5, forcing the king up. That would probably also work. But queen h5, it turns out, was good. Then knight e5, then pawn here. He could take, but you just take back. He could take, and then you're tempted to take back again, but no, you don't. This is very beautiful. What's it called again? Swallowtail mate. Okay, so that's why this position is a little bit dangerous. We can't just grab this knight. That's the point. However, if the king just slides into the corner, as happened in the game, then we can grab the knight with the other knight. You see, he can't do that if he does bishop takes. Bishop takes, knight takes, and we can't grab the knight because the file opens. But after he went king h1, we can grab it with the other knight. And Antic actually missed this. And the problem is, whichever knight you take, you could take off this knight. Knight is landing on f2 and picking up the queen. And this is trouble. This is just game over for white. So the line it gives is bishop takes h3, you drop your knight here, and you pick up the queen, and yeah, black is winning. But instead, Antic did pawn takes, and it's a mistake. Oh, and Gingerbread Man says, you've got to go. Thanks for streaming. Hope the rest goes well. Yeah, thank you. Do check out the rest of this, these very interesting games. I'll put them up on YouTube. And Abhijit Go says, very easy to blunder in Crazy House. Indeed. And Gingerbread Man also earlier said, pawns blocked up, so going for that main diagonal first made more practical sense. And Blunderman says, yes, black's opening is strange. It's very strange. He's just trying to avoid opening theory. But and Craze kind of made a bit of a positional error, which gave him a little bit of an in. And he had a winning opportunity here with knight takes knight. But he missed, he took it with the pawn, and they both had plenty of time. 2 minutes on the clock, 44 seconds on the clock. Okay. But now in this position, white doesn't have the dangerous knights he needs for this at f7 idea. So the thing to do here is to grab that knight and then go takes, rook at h8, blocks, then use that knight to check, and the point is you can go pawn here. If you take it, the queen is coming in and it's game over. If you don't take it, the knight is coming in. Oh, the queen is coming in anyway. Oh, hard luck. And you don't even take the queen. In fact, we're just going to promote, and we're not going to take the knight. Actually, we're going to do something very nice. We're going to take this one. If you go king here, knight here is double checkmate. So you better take it. And we're not going to take with the queen because the knight's defending it. We're going to take with the bishop, and the king's got nowhere to go basically. So takes. King tries to run, but it's checkmate. So this is really painful. So the point, but white does need a knight to make all this work. So bishop takes knight, and the point is you can't take back. You'd have to defend, like knight at f3 it's suggesting it right now. Okay, the point is you have to defend. Okay, so what's wrong with what white did instead is he went for at f7 first. And the problem with that is, well, hang on a second, the knight's defending f7. But even rook takes f7 would have been fine because, why is it fine? So hang on a second. Takes, if he goes at f7, then we can't go rook takes f7 because rook takes f7, but then we have knight at f2 and we're okay. But if, I'm confusing myself, it's f7 first and we just take it, yeah, the point is defended by the knight, but if you go bishop takes knight, knight takes, rook takes f7, now knight at f2, yeah, this is good for black either way. Yeah. So anyway, f7 is not working, but also the point is he has knight takes f7 as well. So there are lots of opportunities. Okay, so rook takes f7 actually happened in the game. Bishop takes knight, knight takes. So this doesn't work as well, the f7 immediately, as taking the knight first. So taking the knight first takes back, and then you take the rook and rook at h8. You don't go for f7 immediately. Yeah, that's the point. You grab this rook and then go at f7. You take away the defender and then you go f7. So at f7 immediately falls to this. Takes is a nice try, but you're losing this queen. You're losing the queen. No. You're not losing the queen. If you take the queen immediately, you'll find yourself getting mated because of rook here check, king takes knight, knight here check, king here, and bishop here check. Oh, not checkmate. Checkmate now. So you've got to be careful. You don't just go and grab the queen. However, you've got 2 pawns, a bishop and a rook, and that's just enough to mate. Knight h3, king here, bishop here check. You're potentially winning the queen with check. But if you go king here, rook here is checkmate. So king f1 was a better try, but what happened in the game was this is checkmate. King f1 was really a better try, so It was 23 seconds on the clock. King f1 was definitely the better try. And it's still a little bit tricky. You can go rook here, check, king here, and you want to force the king so that you can take the queen with check. But it's not so straightforward because you go here, and now the king can actually go and take this and take this. And if you try and check with the bishop, the king can go king e3. You can go bishop g5 check. You could try and just defend here. What's the idea? Takes, takes. Oh, you're picking up a bishop. That's the problem. If you drop a bishop, you're picking up a bishop, which will mate you here. I mean, you can still run for a little bit, but you're losing the queen with check is the point. But if you block with the knight, then there's going to be a knight check, and you're again going to be running into this queen, this thing. So we're going to see that. So we always have a bishop in hand. King takes pawn, pawn here check, king takes pawn. So this is this would have been a sterner defense if white had gone king f1. You eventually pick up the queen, and then game over. But that's a little bit more tricky. Why not bishop at bishop at f3 feels more natural than pawn at f3. Yeah, I'd say bishop at f3 feels more natural. Apparently rook at f4 is causing trouble, because then you have to go, well, bishop to f4, g takes f4, and then we don't have a bishop, unfortunately, for here. But apparently we have to just go for the fact that apparently we can just take the queen here because he doesn't have rook at h1 ideas. So okay, it feels more risky. But okay, that was game 2. So Antic managed to win from a lost position as black. Game 3. So notice game 3 we're playing the same as game 1, except now Antic goes d4. So he goes for a more Scotch type opening. In this sort of opening, white gets a pawn which he hopes to put on h6. It's slightly different from the more solid d3, d6, knight g5 lines. Now we're going for a pawn, and we might sometimes swing the knight over to here. We might sometimes put a pawn on h6. And black clearly knows his theory very well. And we see a very interesting line at g2 takes and the threat of course is knight at f3 picking up the queen. So at e2, and now a very interesting move which is apparently theory. I mean, it's been played over 100 times by black at g3. And the idea f takes g3 creates a weakness, h takes g3, what's the idea? Knight at b4, going for this, king d1, bishop f5, trying to pick up a pawn and drop a pawn here. It's hard to say. You're just creating holes in white's position, but it's a very interesting move, and it's definitely an engine recommendation. Okay, so Antic took it. Black simply castles. And maybe this is then the key mistake for white, this bishop e3 move. Maybe if he just goes bishop f4, you can try knight e6, which is kind of annoying because you can't take it. Back off, takes, bishop here check, king tries to run. Okay, maybe you've still got a fight on. But after bishop e3, it's such a harmless looking move, defending f2, the problem is it runs into this, and then this. Takes, and he doesn't really want to take here because bishop here check will pick up the rook for free. So he takes the queen, he gives up the queen, he's looking for a knight, he grabs a knight, and then in this position white just resigns, because if he takes the bishop, the knight's coming in, the queen's coming in, he's getting the rook on the back rank, it's all over. It's a nice game if you're not Antic, to be honest. If you're Antic, then it's not so fun. You've just been beaten straight out of the opening, and all you did wrong the whole game, literally all you've done wrong the whole game, is you played bishop e3 instead of bishop f4. Such a just such a minuscule error, and bishop e3 looks so safe, protecting f2, but after bishop e3, everything just collapses. Just grabs a knight, and there's just no defense. So that was game 3. Kind of sad game for Antic. Game 4, again, he has to try and fight back as black. And again, he plays this, you could say this, it's about to be the same nonsense with this, except notice white has not gone for long diagonal. White has now developed his bishop to d3, and so it turns into a more d4, d5 setup where black is just worse because he has his light squared bishop behind the pawn chain, whereas white has his light squared, dark squared bishop outside the pawn chain. So it's just straight up d4, d5 and worse. And Blunderman1 says, I think taking g3 already is game over, at least in my experience, or allowing it. And Abhijit goes, says, India is going into lockdown again. I'll have more time for Crazy House. Yeah, it's quite unfortunate what's happening in India at the moment. Don't know what the solution is. I suspect it's something to do with the variants. The other kind of variants. The variants of COVID. Causing trouble. So what's he doing here? This doesn't look pretty at all. Like, really? You're just creating holes in your position, and the bishop isn't even doing anything. But okay. b6 is one of the top engine moves, so I'm not going to criticize it. Maybe they're future ideas. Yeah, definitely they're future ideas now. So if it gets taken, and you see how this is already making progress. So taking it doesn't seem like a good idea. Yeah, you already see taking this was, I feel, already a mistake. Positional mistake. I'm going to mark that as a mistake. It's a positional mistake because suddenly this bishop is coming alive. Takes, and suddenly black's not doing too badly. The only slight worry here is knight h6, knight f6 ideas. Knight h6, you can't take it because otherwise you'd lose the queen. And he does that. Knight h6, side steps. Knight e5 is kind of nasty, hitting the queen but also hitting f7. Got to hold on to f7. And now bishop at a3. Bishop at a3 seems reasonable, but it doesn't actually do anything. You're putting a bishop on the queen side, very easy to defend, and if takes, you're actually chucking white's pieces further away. So you lose actually a lot of initiative with bishop at a3. However, there is a good move which was very hard to spot here for white, which the engine's not even seeing yet, which is knight h takes f7, and the point is you can't take with the rook. This is really surprising. You cannot take with the rook because there's an intermezzo move. And again, maybe it's not even the top engine move, but the intermezzo move is queen h5 with the threat of knight g6 and pick up the queen. And you can't put a bishop on g6 because it just gets taken. You can't put a bishop on g8 because then knight g6 takes queen still happens. And you can't block the h-file or just simply knight takes rook. So what is the best you can do? Probably just move the rook, but then it just gets hit. So what is the best move? Knight h6, knight h6. Okay, and that just doesn't work. The same problem, just simply at h6. So knight h6 is a neat idea. You block the h-file and you defend the rook, but at g5, simple move. And there's just nothing black can do, really. I mean, the engine is suggesting bishop at f6. But, I mean, yeah, it's not pretty. What do you do here? Bishop takes knight? Yeah, bishop takes knight, takes, and apparently we're okay to open up this file. White's in control. Okay, so this is a really hard idea to spot, actually. The idea was knight takes, you can't take with the rook because of queen h5 intermezzo. Very difficult idea to spot. But if you can't take with the rook, then you have to take with the queen, and now it's white to move with a nice edge. I mean, it's only +2, but it's nice. He's got a queen in hand. He can get to work on these dark squares. Okay, so bishop a3, a slight positional mistake from Craze. simply defends, takes, and then he took. Well, let's just simply take back. Bishop at g5 intermezzo. Now, this is a game where, again and again, both sides missed winning ideas, but the winning ideas weren't necessarily easy to spot. And the winning idea here is, with all our knights and another knight coming, 3 knights are going to be... There's a 3-knight attack on the white king. And it goes like this. It goes like this. Knight at f3 takes, knight at h3, king h1, and then take this knight. The idea being that, okay, you can take my queen, but then I have my 3rd knight landing on f2 and winning your queen. And meantime, I'm safe. So it's a 3-knight attack. So given that there is a 3-knight thing going on, why not king g2? Ah, but then knight takes bishop here, simply. And probably the line would continue something like knight takes rook, queen takes, something like this. Pawn takes knight. Okay, so it's not, but apparently then this is going to be weak. Got knight here coming. Okay, so black is doing very nicely here with this amazing move, knight at f3. So given that, why not just king h1? But then knight takes g5 is the problem. Yeah. And why not just rook takes knight, but then just this, and when you take the queen, what's the idea here again? Rook at h1 apparently is dangerous. Takes. Oops. You don't. Okay, so something I missed is okay. Yeah. Okay, that bishop suddenly comes alive, right? And that's checkmate. So yeah, knight f3. Knight f3 is such a good move also because of this bishop supporting it. So okay, so black misses this idea, and we'll see actually this is an idea missed many times in this game. Instead he took the knight, then takes here, and again knight f3 is strong. I mean, we can go through the whole line, but it's the same. It's the same concept, even stronger than knight. If king h1, the idea is knight at g. We can't now go knight takes bishop, but there's knight at g4 apparently, which is strong. We've got a 3rd knight for here, and if he doesn't, we also got knight h2 ideas. Knight h2, he has to give up the queen, and yeah, black is safe. Black is safe and doing well. Okay, but instead rook g8 was played immediately, and pawn here. Now, it turns out that black has some interesting ideas as well in this position. But the really nice move that white has to suddenly turn things around is queen at f6. And of course, just queen takes rook next if you just try and block. Or if you try and block like this, then I'm not sure. If you take here, bishop takes. Okay, so anyway, the obvious thing to do is, of course, just to take this queen. But then you take back, takes, and the key move here is at f7. So the point is, if the rook is moved, bishop takes g7. If the rook is moved, bishop takes g7, and this is looking very bad for black. Black does have an amazing attempt at defending with knight at h3 check. You have to take it or you get smothered mated. Queen at g1 takes this. So you have to take it. Then you put on the queen checking. He has to block. And then you take the bishop and your queen is now defending your rook. So the reason you have to do this, if you just did something like this, you just have takes, and queen g4, blocks, queen takes e6. I mean, this is just going to be all over. Bishop here is a mate threat. There are too many mate threats. So this is a really incredible resource. Knight at h3 takes, queen here, and takes. And suddenly you're defended. Unfortunately, white is still okay because knight takes e4. You can capture this knight. Takes here, hitting your queen. And here, black again has an amazing move at g3. And this is the kind of thing where you'd think, well, can't white just grab the queen? And apparently not, because this bishop is so strong along this diagonal. You'd hit the dark squares. The point is, if king takes f2, rook at g2 comes, king f1. Okay, this is too much, but this is really too much. But knight at g3 takes, knight at h2, king e1, another knight at f3, takes, king here, and queen here is checkmate. Okay, so this is just crazy stuff. But the point is more that this is a sort of distract the queen move, and then this picks up the queen with check. So I guess this is a moon mate in this position. Rook g1. Rook g1 is the only. I'm gonna write this down. Moon mate. The only winning move in this position for black is rook g1 with the idea of picking up that queen later with check. That's called a moon mate. Yeah, how do you see that move? Indeed. Anyway, so it's called. I can send the. I'm gonna do a video about the moon mate. I think sometime soon. That's yeah. I just yeah. Wow. Rook g1. Yeah. Wow. And you have to do it. I mean, well, rook takes h2 apparently also works, but this is just too nice. So this is all to explain why, in this crazy defense at g3, you can't ignore the threats on these dark squares. However, white is still fine if he's very, very careful and plays accurately. Plays something like h takes g3, takes, then oof. Still, you can't take the queen. If you take the queen, then still black is winning. And this is just, again, you win the queen with check and it's all over. But still, if white is really, really careful, then he doesn't take back. There's a very strong move in this position, and apparently it's at f7. Yeah, that's knight takes bishop is not even the best move here. The really strong move here from white is just to deflect the queen. So if there's ever a reveal, you take the queen with check. So you deflect the queen, and then you're fine. Then white is actually doing really well. But okay, that's just a bit of a distraction. So in this position, at g5, there's this knight f3 brilliant move. It's missed. And now there's this queen at f6 brilliant move, but this is missed. Now there's this knight at f3 brilliant move, but it's missed. Sorry, I'm exaggerating, but it basically, they take turns. Bishop at g6 was actually a mistake because you just take the bishop here. But bishop at g6 was played, and now knight at f3 is really strong, it turns out, but it wasn't played. And g takes h6, bishop at f8 trying to defend, at g7. Very subtle mistake, but by taking with this rook, he opens up the back rank. So, very subtle mistake, but you should take with this rook. And you keep the back rank secure. So now white is actually slightly better because of these back rank ideas. Bishop here, queen takes e6, and so you've got this crazy position, which is, yeah, apparently queen takes e6 wasn't the best, apparently queen at d8 and so on, but okay, queen takes e6 was played. In fact, the reason why queen takes e6 was a mistake is it takes away the defender from the king. So this is why queen at c7 was really strong, to threaten queen takes bishop. That's a nasty little move. But okay, queen takes c6 was played, f3 at d7. It looks threatening, but these squares are really defended, you know. So there's lots of defense for this black king, and white doesn't have much material in hand, just a queen. Takes, king takes, and it turns out f3 was strong here. Knight h4 was played, which is again a slight mistake, because f3 apparently was killing. King g3, pawn here, just because white doesn't have anything immediate. You have time to just build this pawn chain into the position, hit that queen, it has to run away, hit the queen again, everything is secure. You could go take, take, and then knight at h1, promote, and so on. Lots of ideas. What's this idea? Why can't he take it? He can't take it because of rook at e2. Okay, yeah, the knight is a very important defender. So pawn here, and now we have a classic back rank mate. Takes, takes, pawn here, rook here, back rank mate. Okay, so that's why in this position f3 and just building a pawn chain was strong. So slight error, knight h4 came, rook takes pawn, and to be honest, black is completely lost here. Black is completely lost, but inexplicably, with 6 seconds on the clock, Craze flagged. So black really just has nothing here. It's hard to see a move that loses, but I guess it just looked nasty. You know, just he's losing another knight, but there just isn't anything. Everything's, if you just did this, just run away. There really isn't anything there. But just the clock got to Craze, and he was obviously worried about his position. So really the key move here was, if Antic wanted to win on the board, was at f3. But he won on the clock, and so the match was tied now at 2-2 after 4 games. Hi there, Hercules. He said, looks like Racing Kings, that last game. Yeah. So, game 5, and Antic does something quite smart. This is his 3rd game as white. He's been completely brutalized with e4, because Craze knows opening theory. So he goes for d4. And it looks like a London. Solid. Backs off. But already it seems like Craze knows his d4 as well, because he's already got a healthy position as black. Bishop e4. Creative move. Yeah, this is a big mistake here. So in this position as white, you should just castle. Get your king out of dodge. By doing this and going straight for an attack, he runs into something quite nasty. Just bishop here, check. You don't want to push with the pawn because otherwise bishop d3. So you block the knight, that's reasonable. And now there's a very strong move from black, which is bishop here. And you have no blockers. And if you move the queen, you can't really castle for a while. This is just unpleasant. King f1, says Marlon in the chat. Absolutely, yeah, that's probably your best idea, but these light squares are looking really awkward. Oh, apparently there's also an issue with bishop at a6. Ouch. And you have no blocker. Oops. Oops, 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 oops. So, yeah. So, yeah. So it's a problem. So Craze really missed a trick here with bishop at c4. Instead going here, which is still good, but not as good. White manages to save his king. Takes here, and takes here. Queen d7, knight b5, the most reasonable looking move in the world. What's wrong with knight b5? I mean, you're just going in for here, exchanging off. It looks really pleasant. But apparently, the move to play here was e5. Go hunting for a knight. Because if he tries to grab this, then we've got here and we're backing off and we're knight f7 kind of ideas. Or actually, if he takes here, and then also knight g7 kind of ideas as well at some point. Apparently even this queen h5 sort of ideas. If he takes here, I'm just, yeah, there's knight f6. Okay, so knights are problems basically. This is a problem. So after at e5, he'd probably have to move his knight to try and stop you giving you a knight. But then you can actually sack. What's the idea? You sack. Oh, I see. You try and deflect this deflect this queen, basically. It's kind of awkward looking position. So what else does he do, apart from knight to g4? Yeah, I don't know. The idea is at h6 at some point, backing off like this. That's another idea. So they're two good moves in this position, basically, at e5, at h6. And the idea of both is you try and get a knight. And Black's got a lot of weaknesses in position. His king is stuck in the center of the board. But knight b5 is the most natural move in the world. And Black could just castle, though, and get his king safe now, but he does this. Knight d6. Apparently, this was an incredible move here, because you can't take it, because it takes back. But how to defend this? I guess you go here. But now you see this king can never castle, so that's an incredible move. Bishop, putting the bishop here instead of the knight. But okay, knight here check was played instead. Takes, and still it looks like the king can't castle, but we don't have any piece to kind of hit it with. So you see how bishop here check was so nasty with this threat coming. Maybe you can go here, but then you go at e5. You see, this is really dominating. Okay, and then you're threatening even maybe to sack, like at e5. If he plays knight here, I think you might. Okay. Oh yes, this is the move. Of course, this is the move. You go e6, interfere. This, and then take this, and you're going knight at c7 next. Okay, so this is just really crushing. Lots of crushing ideas in this position. Okay, but okay, knight d6 was played here. This is still looking interesting, but apparently black is okay. Pawn here check was played. So notice Antic, as white is suffering yet again. Rook at g6. Knight at h3 was another idea. Takes, trying to defend this. Why don't you defend with a pawn? Because simply this. And why can't you take the queen? Because then simply takes this queen. Okay, so anyway, hard to judge this position. Apparently knight h3 is strong. I like rook at g6. It looks solid. Antic trying to defend, but it's looking hard. Bishop takes d4 at g2, trying to defend. Why is he going for this? Because if you take the bishop, I'm missing what's going on here. He's going for pawn at h3, I guess. Okay, this, pawn at h3, pawn at g5, and black has mate here and found the mate. So takes, pawn here check, king here, knight here checkmate. Okay, so this looks so promising, right? Having the king all stuck in the center of the board, but in the end of the day, Antic's king was opened up with a timely at f3 and comes into his position. What should he have done? Maybe knight takes f3, but it's already looking bad. So probably the crucial move missed was bishop c to d6 here. Crazy. And at e7 would have been a good riposte, but then wow, you've already got knight c7. And if you go here, we're getting in on your back rank. There's no defense along the back rank. Oh no, so feel free to respond. I'll try and work things out. So Marlon's complaining, the trouble with responding is I'll have gone through a dozen other lines before seeing the comment. Bishop at h1 is fine if there's no knight at f3 or knight at e2, says Marlon. At g2 just looked terrible. Yeah. So once he's opened up, well, what else do you do apart from at g2? It's really hard. Because what he's afraid of is black going at g2 himself, so that's why at g2 makes some sense. But yeah, there's just too much I mean, obviously you can't do this, but then what else do you do? Yeah, you have to do something like this, but you're going to get slowly ground down if that's the mate threat. Okay, so that was a tough game, and Antic is now 3-2 down, and he's black again. And he has to, again, for 3-3, he has to win as black for the third time on the trot. And okay, for once he plays a sensible opening as black. Or he did, and then he put his bishop behind d5. Well, it was a sensible opening if at this point. Let's go this. Okay, but this is not terrible. We saw at the last game how he encouraged Craze into a trade on e4, which was a terrible mistake. So let's see if he can do the same again. Knight takes d7, knight takes d7. And Marlon says e5 is best for the Catalan stuff. So it's trying to chase this bishop. This makes sense. And here, we just said in the last game how f5 was much better than at f5. But in this position, f5 turns out to be a positional mistake. Because it undermines e6. Remember in the last game there was a pawn chain which went d7, e6, f5, and f5 was really good because it didn't undermine e6 and f7. It turns out in this position f5 is actually very weakening. And the best move in the position was probably just this, and I don't know, why is the knight's come back to exchange, yeah, okay. So just simply knight f6 was good. Now f5, it doesn't look bad, but the problem is white has this tactical shot. Takes. You could just dump a knight on e6, and that's good. But even better is at h5. Where does that knight go? It's actually trapped. Has to go back to h8. Then put a knight on e6, and you can't even go here because of knight takes c7. So you have to like go off to c8 or b8, one of these two squares. And then you don't even take the rook. No. You go straight for the king with knight takes g7. King takes g7, ace h6. You don't want to come back and get caught by at g7, so you go this way, but at g7 comes anyway. You take out the knight, and I would take the rook probably at this point. Yeah. You could take the rook, or Stockfish is even suggesting c4, which is a pretty nasty move. Just opening up this diagonal. And suddenly this diagonal is going to opening up a huge attack on the light squares. But also just simply g takes rook is also strong. Queen takes, and then c4. Okay, so this is actually a sort of the reason why f5 is bad. But that's if you don't spot that shot, then maybe it's okay. Instead, Craze just slowly progress with Queen c1, eyeing the h6 square. c5, and still knight takes d5 is a viable idea. And still in this position, knight f6 is good, just to reinforce this central square. But c5 was played, takes, and I don't know, this doesn't look good for black. Why is he trading a pawn when white wants a pawn for h6? It turns out knight takes was good with future ideas. Maybe. What if white just goes at h6? Yeah, it's not clear. Takes. This is just playing through g7, takes. But at least the knight's defending the light squares here. I'm not sure. Knight h5, king comes back. Pawn here, rook here. Okay, we suddenly don't want to give that knight away. b4. We have to try and hide that knight away. Okay, so apparently black's doing okay as long as you can hide this knight. b5, knight c7. Okay, so this is just playing through the line just for fun. I'm not sure. So just add a6. How do you This looks really uncomfortable. So how do you actually... Why is this winning? Yeah, that's not a good idea because of this and this. This and this. So that doesn't work. So if white does nothing, what's the problem? The problem is bishop at e5 and basically clear away the problems. So yeah. So black is actually doing okay here. But okay, what happened in the end was in fact this takes, bishop h6, back off, and now he hits on d5. Takes, pawn on e6. So this idea did come out. Knight to e5, at f7. So this is looking really, really uncomfortable for our Antic as black. Hi there, Erin. So we're showing this crazy house match. By the way, what's the move missed in this sequence? Simple move missed by Craze. Check, takes. It's the intermezzo move. You take the rook, and now you can't take back with the rook. But if you take with the queen, you have knight h6 ideas. And if you take with the king, well, you still got knight h6 ideas. I mean, so very simple intermezzo move missed. And of course, if you're taking with the rook, then if you're taking with the rook immediately, then it'll be fine. Takes, knight at g5. Apparently, this is still very good for white. But just a very simple move here. After this, don't let black take back with the rook. Take off that rook quickly, because when he takes back with the rook, suddenly we've got a bishop on h6, and when we wanted a knight on h6, and things are not so nice, and everything is well defended by that rook. So just a very simple intermezzo move, which was probably just played instantly. Knight takes pawn. Yeah, in 1 second, this move was played. When bishop takes rook was stronger. Okay, so takes. Knight at e6 was played, hitting the queen. And again, knight at g5 apparently is stronger. But I won't go into the detail. Okay, let's look at the details. Knight g5, where does the rook go? Here? Oh, knight takes pawn is the problem. With the idea of discovery and winning the queen. So in that case, I guess we have to take the knight. But if we take the knight, then there's bishop takes, and suddenly knight here is coming here, and our queen is hanging. So that's not good either. So this is the problem. So knight g5 was really strong. Okay, knight e6, queen d6, knight g5 comes now. Rook f6. Knight takes pawn, queen takes knight. Here, takes. Black could have just taken this. There's no threats, actually. If rook here check, you can just escape. No problems. But he did this instead to stop the check. The knight came back. Takes, and then defended. Rook at d7. So white's still doing okay. Queen c6. Turns out to be a minor error. At f7 is slightly better, but not a minor error. It turns out to be a major error, apparently. Because white now has bishop at f7 check, king h8. Bishop takes knight. Queen takes, and you lose a whole piece. Bishop at e4. Black trying to get some counterplay. Okay, so Antic. He's 3-2 down. He's completely losing. Queen here takes the knight, and if queen takes rook, queen did take the rook. Knight at f7. The problem is if king to g8, then knight to e7. Yeah, what happens here? Knight at e7, king here. What's the move now? I don't see the obvious. Just grab here, bishop at c6. Okay, I'm not seeing the kind of. I'm not seeing a killer blow, but I can see the black king is. Well, if we don't mate the black king soon, then it could be dangerous. Bishop at c6. If you just move, what's the idea? Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, so I don't see a killer blow, but it's looking hairy. Anyway, Antic agreed it looked hairy because he just sacked the queen straight away. Bishop takes bishop, bishop e6, so very simple plan from Craze. Put a knight on f7, put a queen on h8. Simple defense. King takes g2, g4. Remember, white's completely winning, but how to win this position? Because he's a little bit scared of pawn takes pawn. And it turns out the thing to do here is actually not to worry about pawn takes pawn, just threaten mate with queen at g8, which can't really be defended because if we try and defend it, then this is hard to do though. Just saying we can go in. That's hard to do, and also you'd be worried about getting mated yourself. It just turns out that the king on h2 is safe, apart from a rook, but the moment you put a rook on, there's nothing else that follows up. Like the moment you put a pawn here, the rook will hang. The king takes h3 will. So the moment someone checks you here, you just go back to h2 and you say I'm safe on h2. So knight at d8 apparently was the move. But okay, he did rook h1. That can't be the end of the world, right? Just defend h3. Well, apparently then f3 is weak and you're getting mated. So check. And the move here is rook at g2, king f1, and rook takes f2. I mean, if you do this, you just keep on taking. So takes here, knight here, check. And you don't even throw in a check. No, 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 no. You attack the rook. So if the rook goes here, pawn here is checkmate. But if the rook doesn't move, then we're taking the rook, pawn at g2, and rook at h1 is mating. I mean, yeah, there's simply no way of defending. You can take this pawn, you just simply take the rook and take back. Knight here, check. Knight here, check. And here's checkmate. It's just a really weird, sort of quiet move here. Wins. Not the check move. Because if you check, he runs away. If you check, he runs away. And now if you do this, now he's fine. Because he's got queen at b7. If you dare take, he takes back. He's completely fine. So really weird that in this position here, you must play this, or at d2 apparently is also good, but yeah. The back rank is somehow safe, yeah. Hi there, Zarazar. I don't read Russian yet, but okay, someone can translate. Okay, so really interesting. So this turned out, so how did the game continue? It continued rook h1, f3. Now he did not go rook at g2, rook takes f2, which would have completely winning. In the end, Antic actually went takes e2, but it's still good for black. Bishop at g2 tries to defend, and now Antic actually makes a mistake. He went at f3, and you want a knight on f3. So the move here to win is knight at d1. And the threat is simply to promote. If you just do this, then rook at f1. Takes, knight at f3. King g2, you promote. There are lots of moves here, but promoting to knight seems cute. Because then you're picking up a queen with check. New knight on f3. So that knight guards these and these guards these. So what do you do here? Apparently you just have to sack the queen. But okay, he played f3. It's a terrible mistake from Antic. But knight e5 is a counter mistake because he allowed takes g2. So what should white have done? Simply knight at d8, threatening queen at g8 mate. But okay, knight at e5 allows, takes the bishop, takes here, takes here. There's no mate though. Queen here check, just block, and resigns. 6 straight wins for black at this point in the match. Marlon says, knight at d1 is such a computer move though. Ah, it's amazing, these moves. I want to show you, and now this is slight distraction, but I'm going to show you these sort of back rank ideas. I want to show you this position here, and we'll just flip the board. These sort of, it's a really important sort of position. So yeah, this is the position. Okay. So I've done a whole video and a whole set of studies on back rank ideas, but what I realized is I didn't talk enough in those studies, or at all probably, about interference. And interference is really important. So in this position, queen at e8, and the point is if you take, takes, and because this square is covered, it's just checkmate. So the defense is, of course, you must put a queen on. And I thought black is safe here. But there's an incredible move that white has in this position, which is interference. Oh, so Marlon saying knight d1 is such. The knight d1. You mean the? Yeah. You mean promoting the knight to d1? Yeah. No, but I wanted to emphasize this interference thing. Look how cool this is. There is. The rook was defending the queen fine. You interfere, and you can't defend with the bishop because you just take it. You can't defend with the knight because you just take it. Maybe the best attempt is putting a knight here, but you can just take it. And now you're threatening to back off. If he takes back, then yeah, this is mate in this position. So that was the problem here. Knight at d8 tries to defend here, but then you just no. What am I saying? Yeah, bishop e7 check. He does this. You take this. Okay, so he tries to run away. So this is how it would work in this particular game. But okay, just going back. Yeah, interference is a really cool idea, but I understand Marlon saying this knight at d1 idea. So where is knight at d1? Knight at d1 here. Knight at d1. So the point is you're interfering with the queen and the rook's cooperation. Yeah, exactly. The point is, suppose you even dumped a queen on. The point, even if you dumped a queen on, you can just dump a rook on f1, and you're allowing this knight to land here, and then you're winning. Oh, you're winning the queen with check. That's the problem there, and then you have another knight for f3 to mate. Yeah, so yeah, you're interfering with the protection of the back rank. So this is actually a back rank idea, even this knight at d1. And as I said, I did a whole study and a whole video on back rank ideas, but I didn't talk enough about these interference motifs. So I'll just write. I don't know if I'll ever see this again, but back rank interference motif with knight at d1. I put it in the wrong place, haven't I? Yeah, but okay. So Antic was lucky in a way. Didn't play it completely precisely, but Craze's attack, his attack just somehow, Craze missed the interference idea himself of dropping on here or here, and yeah, tough. So 3-all, and we go into game 7. And notice Antic goes back to playing e4 in game 7. Brave. And how does he change? He still plays this move h3. He still loses the bishop and gets this battery on h3, but this time he goes king h2. So he changes things up a little bit. Takes, 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 and it looks like his king is going to be landing on h3. It's king takes h3. But he changes it up a bit. He goes rook g1 instead. King takes a. If you do ever go this, you run into this sort of position. You can step back because you're trying to cover c2, but this doesn't look very pleasant either. I mean, it says only minus 1.6 for black, but it's tough. So rook g1 came, at g4, and already a slight inaccuracy. From black, there's a very brilliant move here from black, which just wins the game on the spot, and that's knight g4. And the point is, of course, if you move the king, knight takes pawn takes queen is a threat. If you take the bishop, knight takes pawn, knight takes queen is a threat. If you go here, bishop here, check, and then knight takes pawn, knight takes queen is a threat. So you basically have to take it, I guess. But if you take it, takes back, and I don't know, this looks really bad. Bishop at g2, maybe. Not pleasant. So knight g4 is a missed win. Hi there, train flipper. So instead, at g4 was played, which kind of encourages to play a move which, as we saw in game 1, White often likes to play in these kinds of positions, which is knight g5, actually giving coverage of h3. Knight takes e4. Knight g takes e4. Turned out to be a blunder because the really nice move apparently was knight takes bishop, because apparently if knight takes knight, you have queen takes g4 and you're threatening mate in 1, and that's nice. And if the more obvious pawn takes knight, you've actually got rook takes g7 straight away. And if king takes g7, then knight takes e4, rook at g2 check. You don't go back to h1, you take on h3 and threaten the rook. So brave stuff, but apparently this is okay for white. So this is why this move here, which looks sensible, is actually a slight mistake because of this response. Marlon says, is it not wise to keep in mind that the wisdom of Stockfish is something to take with a pinch of salt? Well, of course, yes. But you can see how this is a good try. This is a good try because if this, yeah. You can see how this is looking more promising than rook takes g7, king takes pawn. You can see how the obvious move here would be knight here check, but it just gets taken off. So this is looking actually quite reasonable. And white, let's say it's defendable. If Stockfish can't see a mate already, then with all these pieces, because of course white has got 2 pieces for the rook, and white can solidify his position. All black has is a couple of pawns and a knight, and it's not enough. So this turned out to be a slight error, but Antic took the knight. So keeping the material, which turned out to be a slight error as well. Stockfish likes f5, but okay, d5 seems fine. Oh, yes, okay, so d5 does seem fine, but it fell into a tactical trick, which Antic found. Knight takes d5, queen takes d5, and knight at f6. At And Stockfish, I have to say, really likes knight at h6 even more than knight at f6. The idea being just grabbing a pawn. Forget the queen, just go for the pawn, which is harassing your king. But the reason why knight f6, at first it doesn't appear to work. Well, can't you just take it? Take back? Can't you just take it again? And the answer is no, obviously, because of this. Pawn here, drop, and you don't even go for the queen. You go for bishop here, check, and pawn here, checkmate, because the knight is covering the light squares around the king. So that's what makes this move so powerful. Takes, takes, you have to go king h8. Okay, but Craze went king h8. Now it turns out taking the queen, as Antic did, it seems obvious. It's not the best move. Apparently the best move is just to go bishop at e4 and stay safe. Taking the queen has a crazy refutation. And of course Craze did not see this refutation. Now this is a crazy move. Knight at f1. Now obviously why can't you just take this knight? So the reason you can't take this knight is because of at g2 and knight at f3 is a threat. And if you leave the rook there, it is just going to get taken. So if you just say protect the rook, it comes up with another knight. Bishop takes f1. You have to avoid knight at f3. So you take queen takes g4, but then rook at h4. Again, another crazy move. You're forking the queen and the rook. If you dare take it, then I'm picking up your queen. So all the while, my king is safe, your king is open, and it's game over. Completely game over. So that's why you can't take it. But if you don't take it, what do? If you go like king h1, there's at g2. Takes, takes, king takes, at f3. And you can't step up, you can't step here. Here, a rook will get you. King g1. King g1, a knight will get you. And then a rook will get you. So the only move you can do, okay, apart from sacking your queen, and that clearly loses as well, is king takes knight. But then rook at h1, you have to block with something on the back rank, say a knight. Knight at h2, you have to run. Takes here, you run, you're losing the queen with check, and it's all over. There's nothing else you can do. Okay, of course you could block here, but then just takes. King here takes. Oh, you could run again. Okay. Rook takes d1. You could try and run here, and that doesn't work either. Queen at d4 is made. So this amazing move in this position is knight at f1. Knight at f1, and the idea, if he takes it, you don't even take back. You do this really chill-looking move at g2. And there's nothing going. If he just moves here, you've got actually just knight. I was going to say knight at f3, but actually just knight at f1 again. If king g1 at h2, and if he takes, we have the line we said earlier: not with queen, just with knight. And he has to sack in order to survive. If he goes here, just pawn here, king here, pawn, rook here, mate. So this really stunning move, knight at f1. Okay, so luckily for Antic, that wasn't found, and knight at h4 was played instead. Bishop at d4 now defends, so now there aren't any mates on. Knight at f1 doesn't work now because black doesn't have the second knight. So you just go rook takes f1. You don't have the second knight at g2, rook g1. I mean, the bishop was guarding f3 as well. So knight h4 uses up the opportunity for knight f1. Okay, f5 was played. So suddenly white is, with this one move, not missing knight at f1, suddenly bishop at e4 and white is in control. Antic is in control. Amazing. takes, bishop here, rook defends, and smothered mate. Just straight up. Okay, game 8. So Antic, for the first time in this match, has won a game as white and takes a 4-3 lead. So suddenly he's in the match. And obviously Craze must be nervous at this stage because he stops playing d4 and goes instead for e4. Maybe get Antic into some theory. And Antic goes for the Scandinavian. I'm not sure what he does normally. So goes for the Scandi and actually gets an okay position as black. Not too bad. Queen here, check. Bishop here. Bishop g4. So what? This turns out to be a mistake. In fact, this is a losing mistake in this game because it leaves this square open. Backs off, and white has a pawn in hand and gets a queen on the back rank. And basically, the story of this game is just leaving that square open, and Antic never really recovers. It's kind of funny how all the opening disasters he came back from, but somehow this is too much. So he's trying to get some counterplay on the king. So this is actually he had one opportunity here. So he was completely losing, but after knight here check, Craze should have played king e2, and the king is completely safe on e2. After king d1, there's a crazy drawing idea that Antic had, and that is to go rook at g1 first, and if you block, you win a whole juicy rook. So that's clearly good. So if you block, I think you just win a whole juicy rook. But apparently you can also go at e2. At e2, king takes e2, and then win a juicy rook. I mean, okay, I don't know why you'd want to give the pawn first, but apparently I don't get it. Just don't get it. Okay, I guess the king on e2 is more. If you just take the rook immediately, maybe he can do something. He can go queen at e2 apparently. Okay, so obviously you have to take this rook. Well, actually you don't. You actually have to go queen at f1. Okay, but if it's queen at f1, it's just takes. This is a standard drawing idea. You just keep on taking and it's a draw. But if you take the rook, this is quite funny. If you take the rook, pawn here check, you have to take it. Knight takes rook check. You have to go somewhere. You come back with the knight, and you can't go to here or rook here as mate. This is a classic mate. You try and get out. You try and take this knight. Bishop here pushes the king back, and then rook here is checkmate. Okay, so clearly going to e1, that didn't work. What about going to here? Well, this is no good either. Just bishop here check, rook here checkmate. There's nowhere else to go. If I go here, same problem. This check. You just have to do this, 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 and then the brilliant move here. You have to notice this one. Bishop here check. Sure, you can try this. It doesn't work. Well, look, obviously you have to take this rook. Oh, yeah, you don't. Yeah. Yeah, obviously you have to defend with the queen. Yeah, so... Yeah, so that would be a kind of a good swindle. Rook at g1, good swindle attempt. Because you know that if you do this, it's a draw. Because of... trying to think. Because I was thinking if you go queen here, yeah, rook at h1. But yeah, okay. You can always get. I think you can always get a draw by just going rook takes rook. Yeah. Queen takes rook, and then rook at g1 again. Yeah. And he has to. He's got a queen in hand, but still. Apparently, he even has winning ideas with rook takes queen here. But if you try and give up queens, so the game could go on. The game could go on, but the point is you always have at least a draw. Is the point. with this idea of just keep on taking on h1. So, after all that, Antic is back at 4-4. He won a game as white, and he straight away lost it again. So what does he do? He's been losing every game as white, apart from that one game. He changes it up. Very important to change things up if it's not working. And this is a standard thing. You try and deflect the knight away from this pawn so that you get to take this pawn with check. And in this sort of position, so here, in this sort of position, you usually want to try and chase away this knight. So with moves like at e3. So the opening line is usually just like this sort of thing. So you take the knight, you give up the queen. Just sort of, this is quite normal. Or if you're opper, you quite like doing this, and that's also a main line. Well, it's an opper line. Queen takes c2 and so on. But Antic goes for some. Obviously, why do you want to get rid of this knight? It's the one piece in your half of the board. Of course, you want to get rid of it. But Antic goes for a less. Sigis is crazy home. Yes. Oh, hi there, opper. Sigis good. Not Sigis. Antic goes for a slower way of getting rid of the knight, which is d3, bishop e3, and then get rid of the knight. By the way, knight c2 is good, so nothing wrong with it. So d3, so it's slightly less theoretical. D3, d6, he backs off, knight takes knight, queen here, backs off, pawn here, and finally plays bishop e3. So he eventually gets this construction. And really, c5, trying to secure that knight. And really, it's key at this point. You just take this en passant, and you've cleared that knight away from your half of the board. So this would have been pretty decent for white. But unfortunately, he let the knight stand there. He just took it. And now white has this thorn. Black has this thorn in white's half of the board. And the reason he did it is probably he thought he had this fork. He didn't realize Craze's move. You've got no time to take the queen. Because this is defended, and black can keep on taking. Knight at c3, and its black is doing quite nicely. Not knight at c3. Bishop at b4, king here. Bishop at b4, knight here. What's going on here? Can we go knight at c3? I mean, we can apparently, but it's might not be the best. Okay, so there are lots of ideas, but the point is, black is without the queen, but just because this one bishop defending this, he's actually very safe, and defending this, so then just no checks and nothing. So Antic missed that. He realizes he actually has to take back the pawn. So that's why this whole thing was a mistake. It was all relying on knight here takes pawn, and you can't do that. So knight here, you have to take back the pawn. So okay, but he gets a nice knight, but he lost a bit of material. And here he went and sacked the knight, and again that's a slight positional error. Probably knight at f5. Just keep on gang up on this g7. Don't give it up so easily. But okay, he just went and sacked it. And of course, if king takes, then okay. Black goes on the counterattack. Apparently bishop at h6 was strong as well, but okay. With ideas of looking towards d2. Okay, this doesn't seem that bad. Comes back. Takes here, king f1, bishop f8, so black seems safe enough. g7, because this is a brilliant move. Really brilliant move from Antic. He recognizes you can't take that, because otherwise I take here and I win your queen. So Craze gives up the queen, but Antic doesn't want the queen. He wants the queen with check. Okay, so now obviously if you win a queen with check, things are looking good. Queen here check, he takes the knight. Still a complicated position, but things are looking promising. Knight takes bishop, very nice move. Bishop at f7, nice move. And here, probably to crown it all, knight at f4 would have been a nice way to just hit g6, keep up the pressure. But okay, knight d7 turns out to reverse the whole position because it gives black a knight and another knight, and I think it's dangerous. So takes. It loses a piece as well, and there's no concrete follow-up. That's the problem. White just doesn't have the concrete follow-up. Only has a knight in hand. Yeah, this is just a terrible mistake. Was it made in time pressure? No, 1 minute on the clock. He thought for a long time, half a minute on this move. It just doesn't work. I'm not quite sure what he was thinking. But okay. Knight here check, backs off. Okay, so suddenly black is actually winning again, and white is defending like hell. Takes. Defend the mate. What do we do? Check. This is just desperate stuff from Antic. He has nothing. Nothing at all. Ah, or does he have something? Because if king takes pawn, suddenly he has something. If king takes pawn, suddenly he has bishop at e6. Knight here check. Not knight there check. Knight at h7 check. And knight there is checkmate. Crazy stuff. So quite a beautiful mate he suddenly has. Okay, but Craze is not stupid. He's not going to fall for such a thing. So he just runs away. Bishop at d8. Okay. And it turns out if Craze goes here, he is walking into checks, like knight here check. And knight here check. And knight here check. And knight here check. And bishop here check. But the checks run out. So you have to do this kind of walk of this, and you're okay. The point is, you don't want the bishop to be coming on f3 with check. So the way he did it this way, by going here, there's knight at e6 check, and it's going to be taking the rook with check. That's the problem. So by going here, knight e6, he can avoid landing on the squares where the rook can be taken with check. So you notice he avoids landing on the squares like this. And by the time that the knight, which would have taken the rook, it's moved by now, and so it's fine. He's safe. So really difficult king walk, and Craze just walked to the wrong square, and Antic converted like a boss. Knight here check. The point is, you might want to go here, but then knight b4 check, and you're still forced to go where this rook is. Bishop here check. Oh, so you could take the rook, which also mates, or you can go bishop here check, knight takes pawn, and mate. Pawn is the problem. So you have to go here, but then knight here is mate. So yeah, the problem is the moment you go to here, you're winning this rook. Knight takes rook, king c8, and with a knight and two rooks, we can find a mate here. How? We go something like knight at e7, and the king will try and run away, but you just keep it from running away. Just go like this. King takes d8, and rook anywhere will mate. Yeah, the king. It would make a great puzzle indeed. So literally, Antic has nothing. It's force mate. So the move he should have done, by the way, is king g8, and that would have just ended the puzzle straight away. So f7, king h7, and there's nothing. Try and get a knight. Just you take with the rook, and there's nothing. You can try throwing another check. Just take it. Try another check. Throw another check. Just take it. So yeah. So king g8 was safer. He just managed to ask enough questions, and Antic is back ahead 5-4. Game 10. Antic is black. Can he win as black to win the match? And what does he play? He plays this weird stuff. French defense with no d5, with like a wolf defense. Now this is a very subtle positional error, I would say, because look at this position here. The knight has developed and both the bishops are off the board. Now just look, imagine this position here. Imagine it's white to move, and white is told, would you like to take both the bishops off the board, and black has made a move? Why would he want that? The black bishop is awful, the white bishop is good. And black has made an extra move as well. That sucks. So that's what it's important to Crazy House to think. What will have happened after? What will have happened after a trade? Who benefits from that trade? Marlon says, the reason why Stockfish is only so much use is that you will find yourself in lost positions like that from time to time, and it is useful and instructive to have the chance to think about which square is safe for the king. Yeah, so at the beginning of this stream I conducted a poll of do you want the engine on or off, and we had a 100% asked for the engine on, which is why this stream has the engine on. Otherwise, I had it all pre-prepared of what I wanted to talk about. So yeah, in this position, this seems fine, but you can see how it's a subtle positional error because white has all the space, which means the bishops are more valuable, and his bishop is more valuable because it's not blocked up, and probably d4 is good, bishop c4 is good, anything is good. This, suddenly, he's given black a development move with tempo, and he's taken off the bishop. So suddenly, black can put his bishop back on the board outside the pawn chain. d4. Now d4 is again a very, very, very subtle positional mistake. Very subtle. Because you could just take, and then go d4, and the d file remains closed. Okay, the engine doesn't like it, but this seems still quite good for white. He's got lots of space. The reason it's not good for white is simply because of the thing we just said earlier about this trade having happened. But it's a very slight positional mistake going d4 now, because now you can go takes, 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 and if you take with the pawn, what's the reason? Yeah. You have this threatening bishop takes knight, queen takes, knight takes pawn, which is a bit of a problem. I guess we could just solidify, but then the problem is we have ideas like knight h4 and knight takes g2, and I guess you could just do this, 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 but the problem is there's queen, oh, yeah, there's queen takes knight even. I was thinking queen here and queen here and queen takes this, but there's just queen takes knight straight away. Okay, so that doesn't work. So yeah, this is just nasty. And if you take with the knight to avoid that, well, that doesn't work either, because you've got takes, takes, and now it's white to move, pawn at e2, and okay, I don't see the mate yet, because this is covered and this is covered. Queen at e4, threatening g2, we have to defend with the knight, I guess, to defend these two squares. But then that blocks off the defense of knight f4. So if I just back off, and I completely missed this, but apparently the engine is going queen takes g2. Okay. Well, obviously, if I go here, queen takes rook, and it's just game over. In fact, you don't do queen takes rook, you just go this. But okay, I just didn't see this at all. Apparently this is a problem because of pawn e2, and whichever way the king goes, knight here is checkmate. That's actually an amazing idea. I never saw this idea before, of just sacking the queen. Because your squares around your king are so weak. I mean, I saw the idea of sacking the queen, but never in that kind of position. So that's actually really interesting. So actually in this position, yeah, I don't know. It's just, he has to go something like king d1, but yeah. Not sure. Bishop h5, e2 takes, king e2. I mean, apparently there's no mate, which is the other surprising thing, but it's not pretty. Knight takes g2, apparently. Okay, so I don't see. It's not completely obvious continuation, but it is clear that that white is in some trouble. Even if white ever got a check here, these two squares are covered. There's no continuation. If ever queen check, bishop block, everything's safe. So this is why it's a very subtle positional mistake, because you just take here, takes, and you open up this this d file. You could try this, just block. This, just this. Okay. So, but Antic didn't exploit it, and instead he went bishop at h5, which is also good. But it's like knight takes knight should be played first, and then this idea. Castles, takes. So it's just a slight move order thing. Takes, and okay. So you got some of the same ideas, but just different move order. Queen here, but actually this is already a very strong position for black. He's won a pawn, and he does h3, and the concept is if takes, this knight is never hanging because there's knight at f3 picking up the queen. Marlon says, I think we should do with more puzzles where you have to win if you can walk the king accurately. I have a collection, so if you... Yeah, I have a collection of some of these, but obviously not that many. And you can find them on the Chess Variants site. Yeah. So at c6, takes the knight, takes back, attacks the queen backs off. Oh yeah, this is already, oh my goodness, such trouble. What could the queen have done? Of course, yeah, the queen can't take here because of knight here check takes queen. But okay, he just lost a full piece. If he done something like this, the problem is there's knight e2 check picks up the queen. So if he does this is again knight e2 check picks up the queen. This square is taken. What if he does this? Then just knight takes bishop, queen takes, and again knight d2 is probably like close to mate apparently, but it apparently isn't quite mate. Bishop at f3, at g2, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, at f3. We're just a pawn short of mate basically. You hit the queen. Okay, so it's if you try and defend the mate, then we win a queen. Okay, so this is already really tough. So Craze gives up the bishop, but this is in some sense not attacks the queen again. Okay, so he doesn't even take the queen, takes the bishop, and takes this one with check because he wants to take queen takes bishop. Yeah, because actually, yeah, taking the queen is a mistake because then white would get bishop takes queen. Okay, apparently this is still good. But okay, he goes for this instead. King h1 was feasible, but then he just simply takes off this bishop with a knight. So queen takes bishop, defends, attacks here, going for this now. Okay, so it's really tough. You can't even go here because of knight here check. You can't go here because knight here still check, king here, bishop takes g2. You have to take it and take it. And knight f4 is probably the cleanest. Comes out, bishop at g2, he has to come up, queen here check, comes up, and a couple of pawns will mate, probably just. So what happened in the game was Craze gave up the queen, but this is obviously completely lost. Queen, Antic doesn't go for the kill, he just uses the fact he's up a lot of material, and just hits away gradually and carefully. And nice pulling the trigger here. Rook at h1, knight takes bishop, knight takes h3, bishop here check, bishop takes f2, knight here check, queen here check, queen d6, queen comes in again, queen takes pawn, checkmate. Very nice finish by Antic. If the king had gone to h1 instead, you can just draw it out like this. So there was no escaping. There's no escaping the mate. Okay, so that was the series. That was Antic taking the series 6-4 against Craze. I thought they were quite instructive games, which is why I wanted to share. And Marlon, yeah, so I recommend is it game 9 for the king walk if you're making a study. Yeah, we should do a Crazy House themes, safe king walking, and just like we have Crazy House themes for various other things. So just to look at the tags in Crazy House, just to see how many we've got so far. There's a king run, a defensive theme involving running and dodging one's king to escape the opponent's mating attack. So we only have 5 puzzles following that so far. So that's something we can build on, absolutely. And okay, you've put it up on chessvariants.training already. Okay, excellent. So if I go, I'm white, am I? Okay, so this is I'm white. I'm trying to encourage the king to go here. Is the point? So this is the mating attack. Right here, check. I need to encourage the king. If I go here, then he has to go here, then I can take the rook. God. Okay, so I'm supposed to go here, and then I can take the rook. Okay, so this is better than taking the rook. This is too difficult. Okay, so I've got these ones under control. Okay, no, exactly. I go bishop f3 first. And then I want a pawn for g7. So I go pawn at g7. Yeah. And then it's easy. That's checkmate. Okay. So this is a kind of a nightmare attack. It's hard to explain exactly what it is. I'll just say DNQ. It's hard to explain the exact theme of it, but maybe king hunt. Should be called a king hunt, yeah. DNQ king hunt. This is when you're hunting a king, and when a king successfully escapes, it's called a king run. So yeah. So the king run, just to give an example of a king run theme, it's this one. Is it? So king run, okay, that's probably not what I meant. So I'll just give this one. So here we're in check. White's got 2 pawns, a queen, and this, that, and the other. So I imagine we want to run, because if we took the rook, I imagine queen here check would be trouble. If we go here, queen here checks mate, so I imagine we run back. I'm wrong. Okay, so this is tough. So, oh, of course that doesn't work. If we go here, queen here check, king here, and queen here is checkmate, so we have to take the rook. Of course. So now we need to find the right piece to block with. Okay, knight, I'm guessing, to stop queen there check. He's only got a pawn. So what do I do? If I go here, the problem is he goes pawn there check. But then I can go king takes pawn. But then he goes... The problem is if I go here, then he's at f4. I don't like that. So... But if I go king takes pawn... Okay. This is a struggle. So king takes pawn. He would go h3. And the moment I go here... He's got queen takes knight. That's why I don't like. So king takes pawn. There, and then there. So king takes pawn seems fine. What's wrong with this? Because with this, he's got here check, here. I think I have to take the pawn. Oh, I'm so bad. So I go like this. and then I go like this. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, I didn't. This is too difficult. So king takes pawn. You press this button for this circle button for practice against computer. So king takes pawn. He puts it. Okay, he's not playing. Just put the queen on. Okay, so let's just roll. Queen there. Knight there makes a lot of sense because it stops him coming here. At g4, look, if I go king takes pawn, I lose because of f3, g4, and then h5. And queen takes knight, and I lose. I block with, say, a bishop, but he just goes takes, and knight there, checkmate. Whoa. Yeah, because he just won a knight. Yeah, okay. Now, if I do this, this is so hard though. What do I do here? I have to go king f4, and a queen takes knight. Oh, king takes e4, and I get to run away. Okay, I missed this completely. Because often you want to take the pawn, and yeah, I guess you don't want to take the pawn. So if you take the pawn, okay, I get it now. I understand this puzzle now. If I take the pawn, he gets to defend this pawn with check. Whereas if I don't take the pawn, I can meander around and pick up that pawn. Yes, okay. Now I understand it. I'm doing my own puzzle. Yeah, I've forgotten my own puzzles. Okay, so yeah, so that's an example of the king hunt. And Marlon, if you make more of these on chessvariance.training, that would be amazing. So Hercules set another puzzle. I have to run king here, that's what we saw. And I don't want to go... If I go king here, he's got bishop here. I don't know what am I supposed to go king here, then yeah, I'm supposed to go king here first. And then king here. It's just it's so random, isn't it? And then... I don't want him to have this and this taking the rook with check, so I go here. No, I got it wrong. But if I go here, he takes the rook with check. What's wrong with this? Don't I get the rook with check? Okay, so here. Oh, okay, and then here. I should be thinking more, but I'm just confused. What's wrong with here? Because then he's got knight here, and then he mates me. Okay. Oh, and then I can take the knight. Okay. And now I can mate him, finally. Oh, it's check. Okay. I'm embarrassing myself here. I have to run. Can't I run? If I run here, he's still going to mate me? Yeah, if I run, rook here is mate. Okay, embarrassing. So I have to block. Nope. Blocking gets myself mated. My goodness, do I have to run back? But then... This is too hard. Okay, so it's a check. If I run, rook here... Oh, why can't I run? Run here, rook here, king here... No. If I run king here, rook here, king here, surely I'm not mated then. Oh, okay, so what... Wait. I did that. Rook here, king here. It's too far away to be mated. So if I go king here, rook here, king here... This can't be... Rook here, check. I can't see why I'd get mated here if I go king up. Oh, I don't get mated. I just had a... I had a problem. Okay, so I run. It's so funny. Now I've got a choice. Surely everything works, right? So this should work. This should work. He's got no pieces, so everything should work. White has no pieces in hand, so why should... I can see that... I don't get it. I even need to do king takes pawn. I really don't get it. He can't stop mate. I have to find the best mate, so the fastest mate. Okay, so king takes pawn is a bad idea because he's got knight there, check. So I have to find the fastest mate. Apparently there's a unique fastest mate here, which I find hard to believe. Because if I go king here, rook here, check, king here. Oh, I see it. No, I don't. For a second I thought I could block a check with a counter check, but I can't. I can't do anything sneaky like that. Okay, I don't see it. I'm like, what? Oh, yeah, he has nothing to defend with. So like, if he had like a rook to defend, then fine, but he doesn't. Okay, I'm just going to do this. Okay, I don't understand. I just don't understand. Like, what the heck? Why? I don't understand this. Let's have a look. This is far too hard. Okay. Okay, so king c8 we saw. We're going to have to retry this puzzle. Okay, so king c8 we saw. Okay, so he does this. Now, I'm afraid of bishop here check, which is why I step up to c7. Okay, so he does knight at e6 check, and now I'm afraid of knight takes rook, which is why I don't want to go here because then there's knight here, king there. I want to run away from knight takes rook. Okay, so I run away from knight takes rook, and I'm given this knight here check. Now, if I step here, I'm in trouble. Two knights like this cut off 4 squares. So I know I can only go to here, here, or here. No, I can't go to here because of the bishop. So I know I can only go to these 2 squares. I didn't like this because I was afraid of... hang on. So if I go to... I can't figure out between these two again. If I go here, he has... So you want knight takes rook. So, okay, yeah. So king here, he could just still go knight... Yeah, he can go knight there. So that's why I think king h6 looks better. Ah, that's wrong. Okay, let's have a look at the engine. So king a5 is better. So what's wrong with king a6? It's just harsh. So king a6 is fine, it's just harsh. Okay, fair enough. I can deal with the fact. It's just harsh and I got it wrong. Okay. So knight c6, king takes c4, knight takes d8. So the point is just to try and get out of check, which is why I was getting all of this wrong. Rook a5 I can believe. So what was the move? Yeah, so he played rook rook here check, king b2, rook b4. Now how does it make a difference where I go? Yeah, everything's the same, exactly. Everything's the same, because whatever you do, you just get taken. So everything's mate in 3. So king a1, king takes c3, and king c1 are all mate in 3. Yeah, okay, so yeah, it has to be. So there are other variations which would have to be added is the problem with this puzzle. But probably it should come, yeah. I mean, probably at this point, yeah, I think, so the thing is you have to do this. So that's why this puzzle's slightly annoying, because in a way the other moves, once you've found that first move, everything else is actually okay. It's just you have to find this move here. Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, you need to step back. Yeah. In a sense, this is just like a one-move puzzle. It should just be a one-move puzzle. Just find this move, and then everything else should be fine. So I would have this as just a one-move puzzle. But anyway, it was fun torturing me. Okay, well, hi there, Twill1922. The site for the puzzles. Yeah, thanks, Marlon, for linking it. That site only accepts fastest mate. Yeah. Okay, thanks for watching the games, and congratulations to Antic, who now goes on to round 4. So he has to win round 4 and round 5 to be a candidate, but even tougher challenges ahead. So Marlon says a one-move puzzle is too easy to guess, though. I guess it's a 50-50, but it's not really. It's rook takes bishop, or this, or this. So it's not easy to guess at all. I think I'd get it wrong. Normally, you want to be near a knight because knights defend you. This is not intuitive because the knight can check you, and rook takes bishop is tempting. Get rid of this, although it doesn't work. Rook takes bishop takes. Now rook here would be a threat if you just started. So takes. It's not. Knight at f8 and knight at b8. You have to distract the rook from. So it's not easy at all. Knight at f8 just to distract that rook so that you can go rook e7. And then once you're on the back rank, then this is a classic. This is a classic. Once you're on the back rank, you have this classic two-knight mate, king at b8. Sorry, don't you do this first? Knight c6. And if this, then this. And if this, then this. Oh, or this. So very pretty. So that's why you have to try and distract it. And if he... Okay, king c7 is apparently good. And then you have... I was thinking rook at d7, but apparently even stronger is knight at b5. He tries to run. Knight takes d6. He tries to run. Knight b4. He tries to run. Rook's there. He tries to run. So yeah, it's hard to see that so rook takes bishop is promising. Here's also promising because you're near this knight. Yeah, it's just weird that this knight is already attacking something. So if you can deflect that knight away, that's fine. So yeah, it's crazy. Knight e6. You'd have thought you could run away then also at this point. So it's kind of crazy you can't run away because discoveries. So you have to go here. And now knight b4 and controls these 4 squares, and then the bishop controls this square, and the knight controls this square as well, so you're forced back, and then you get the rook with check. So once you've got the rook with check, the bishop kind of controls everything now. So you're forced into a corner. Knight a6, and rook here or here will finish it. Is there anything better? Yeah, king c8 puts up more resistance. Rook at a8. bishop at b8. You have to take, and then knight a6 pushes you here, and that bishop mates. So if you defended with a knight, there's still takes, knight a6, king c8, and you could have fun with knight b6, or simply just knight here. But knight b6 is fun because that's pretty with the two knights and the bishop. So the bishop guards the light squares, and then the two knights obviously guard the four squares in front of them, but they also guard this square, so it's pretty fun. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Glad you enjoyed the stream.